There's a particular kind of moment that shows up in a lot of relationships, right around the point where things are actually going well. Someone is kind to you consistently. The relationship feels stable. There's no immediate crisis, no ambiguity, nothing obviously wrong. And instead of relaxing into that, something in you starts, quietly at first, to look for the exit. Maybe you pick a fight over something small. Maybe you pull away right when your partner leans in. Maybe you start noticing flaws you'd never noticed before, building a case, almost unconsciously, for why this might not actually work. And afterward, when the relationship survives it anyway, or sometimes when it doesn't, you're left wondering the same question a lot of people quietly ask themselves for years. Why do I keep doing this to something good? Here's what we're going to look at today, and it's more mechanical than most people expect. Self-sabotage in relationships isn't a character flaw, and it isn't evidence that you don't actually want the relationship to work. It's usually a very old survival strategy, still running exactly as it was designed to, except the danger it was built to protect you from isn't the danger you're actually facing anymore. It's worth naming, before going further, why this particular topic tends to produce so much private shame. Most relationship problems come with an obvious external component, a partner who did something hurtful, a circumstance outside anyone's control. Self-sabotage feels different because the evidence points inward. You were the one who picked the fight. You were the one who pulled away when things were going well. It's easy to conclude from this that you are simply broken in some way, incapable of tolerating good things, destined to ruin whatever works. That conclusion, understandable as it is, tends to be both inaccurate and unhelpful because it treats a learned, mechanical pattern as though it were an unchangeable trait, when it's considerably closer to a program that can be identified, understood, and gradually rewritten. To understand why this happens, it helps to start with a concept from psychology called the self-fulfilling prophecy, first studied systematically by sociologist Robert Merton and later expanded considerably by relationship researchers. The basic mechanism is simple. A person holds a belief about how something will turn out, and that belief shapes their behavior in ways that make the predicted outcome more likely, even though the belief wasn't based on anything happening in the present moment. Applied to relationships, this looks like someone who privately believes, often without ever stating it consciously, that closeness eventually leads to abandonment, or that they aren't someone people stay with long term. That belief doesn't sit quietly in the background. It actively shapes behavior, producing exactly the kind of distancing, testing, or conflict that eventually gives the belief the evidence it was looking for all along. The relationship doesn't fail because the belief was true. It fails, in many cases, because the belief made itself true through the behavior it generated. This matters because it reframes what self-sabotage actually is. It isn't random destructiveness. It's a prediction trying to confirm itself, and the person carrying that prediction usually isn't aware they're carrying it at all. They simply experience the specific behaviors, the picking of fights, the sudden coldness, the compulsive needs to test a partner's loyalty as things that happen to them, reactions to something real in the moment, rather than the execution of an old script written long before this particular relationship began. There's a related mechanism worth understanding, something researchers sometimes describe using the concept of homeostasis, borrowed originally from biology, where a system works to maintain a stable internal state even when that state isn't actually healthy. Applied to relationships, a person whose nervous system learned early on that closeness is risky develops a kind of emotional homeostasis calibrated around a certain amount of distance or instability. When a relationship becomes calmer and closer than that internal calibration is used to, it doesn't register as simply good. It registers as a deviation from the expected baseline, and the system, quite literally, works to correct it, pulling behavior back toward the level of distance or conflict it considers normal, even though normal, in this case, isn't healthy at all. This explains something that confuses a lot of people about their own self-sabotage. Why it so often shows up specifically when things are going well, rather than during obviously difficult periods. A crisis doesn't usually trigger self-sabotage because a crisis already matches what the nervous system expects. It's calm, consistent closeness that triggers it, precisely because calm and consistency are unfamiliar, and the system interprets unfamiliar as unsafe, regardless of how objectively good the situation actually is. Let's get specific about what this actually looks like, because self-sabotage rarely announces itself directly. One common form is picking fights over minor issues during periods of closeness. A partner brings home the wrong brand of something from the store, and what should be a 30-second correction turns into a prolonged argument about respect or attentiveness, or whether the relationship is even working. The argument isn't really about the item. It's a release valve, a way of introducing distance and conflict back into a dynamic that had started to feel uncomfortably too stable. A second form is testing behavior, creating small, often unconscious tests of a partner's commitment, withdrawing slightly to see if they'll pursue, mentioning an ex or a person who's shown interest to gauge a reaction, canceling plans to see whether partner will express disappointment or simply let it go. These tests rarely get acknowledged as tests, even by the person running them. They tend to be experienced as simple curiosity or as legitimate needs, rather than as a covert audit of whether the relationship can be trusted. A third form is what's sometimes called preemptive exit, ending a relationship or beginning to emotionally withdraw from one at the first sign of vulnerability or increased intimacy, often just before a relationship would naturally deepen further, before a partner moves in, before an anniversary, before a conversation about the future. The logic underneath this, rarely stated explicitly, is something like, if I leave first or pull back first, I control how this ends, rather than being caught off guard later by an ending I didn't see coming. A fourth form, quieter than the others, is chronic dissatisfaction that migrates. A person addresses one perceived flaw in a partner, and once it's resolved, quickly finds another to focus on, then another, never quite landing on a version of the relationship that feels sufficiently safe to simply enjoy. This isn't the same as having genuinely unmet needs, which deserve to be addressed directly. It's closer to a moving target that relocates itself specifically to avoid ever running out of reasons to stay guarded. A fifth form is emotional withholding at exactly the moments a partner is most vulnerable or most in need of reassurance, not out of malice, but out of an unconscious sense that giving fully, at the moment it matters most, would leave you exposed in a way that feels intolerable. This often shows up as a strange kind of coldness that arrives specifically when warmth is most needed, a partner crying and being met with a flat, distant response, not because the withholding partner doesn't care, but because caring fully in that exact moment feels like too much risk to take on. It's worth naming where these patterns tend to come from, because the specific origin often explains which form of self-sabotage a person gravitates toward. Someone who experienced early abandonment, a parent who left, or was chronically emotionally unavailable, often develops a fear centered on abandonment itself, and their self-sabotage tends to take the form of preemptive exit, leaving before they can be left. Someone who experienced early enmeshment, a caregiver who was overly involved, controlling, or who used the child to meet their own emotional needs, often develops a fear centered on engulfment, losing yourself inside someone else's needs, and their self-sabotage tends to take the form of withdrawal and emotional withholding precisely when a relationship starts asking for more closeness. Both patterns are protective in origin. Both make considerably more damage than protection once they're running inside an adult relationship that doesn't actually contain the original danger. Consider a composite example. Someone we'll call Adrian. Adrian's parents divorced when he was 9. Following years of a relationship he now recognizes, looking back, as unstable and frequently on the edge of ending. He spent much of his childhood quietly bracing for the actual separation to happen, and when it eventually did, some part of him concluded, without ever consciously deciding it, that relationships end, that it's simply a matter of time, and that being caught unprepared is worse than almost anything else. As an adult, Adrian noticed a consistent pattern. Every relationship that reached roughly the 8-month mark, long enough to become genuinely serious, short of enough to still feel new, triggered a wave of restlessness in him that he initially interpreted as boredom or incompatibility. He'd start finding fault with his partner, picking arguments, occasionally considering ending things over issues that, looked at honestly, weren't actually significant. It was only in his early 30s, after the same pattern repeated with enough partners to notice, that Adrian recognized what was actually happening. He wasn't losing interest at the 8-month mark. He was recreating, on a predictable schedule, the sense of instability he'd absorbed as a child, ensuring that no relationship ever got comfortable enough to blindside him the way his parents' marriage eventually had. What changed for Adrian wasn't a single insight, though recognizing the pattern was an important first step. It was learning to notice the specific bodily sensation that preceded the restlessness, a kind of tightness, an urge to create distance, and treating that sensation as information about an old fear rather than as an accurate signal about his current relationship. Over time, he learned to name it, sometimes even out loud to a partner. I think I'm about to do the thing where I pick a fight because things feel too stable, which sounds almost absurd stated plainly, but which interrupted the pattern more effectively than any amount of private self-analysis had managed to on its own. It's worth adding a second example because self-sabotage rooted in fear of engulfment often looks quite different on the surface, even though the underlying mechanism is closely related. Consider someone we'll call Priya, whose mother relied on her from a young age as a confidant and emotional support, sharing adult worries and grievances with her long before she was equipped to carry them, and expecting a level of attentiveness and responsiveness that left little room for Priya's own needs. Priya didn't experience abandonment growing up. She experienced the opposite, a closeness so total it left her with almost no boundary between her own feelings and someone else's. As an adult, Priya found that the beginning of relationships felt wonderful, full of genuine connection and mutual interest. But as soon as a partner started needing more from her, more emotional availability, more frequent contact, more of the kind of steady presence a serious relationship requires, something in her would quietly start to withdraw. She'd describe it to herself as needing independence, or as the relationship moving too fast, and she genuinely believed this in the moment. It was only much later, after the same withdrawal repeated at a similar point in several relationships, that she recognized the pattern wasn't really about pacing at all. It was an old, well-founded fear that closeness would once again mean losing herself entirely inside someone else's needs, and withdrawing before that could happen felt, to her nervous system, like the only reliable form of self-protection available. Adrian and Priya illustrate the same underlying mechanism producing nearly opposite behavior. Adrian's system feared being left and protected against it by leaving first. Priya's system feared being consumed and protected against it by creating distance before consumption could occur. Neither pattern is more or less legitimate than the other, and neither person was, in any meaningful sense, choosing to sabotage their relationships on purpose. Both were running protective strategies that had made complete sense in the environment where they were built, and that had simply never been updated to reflect the different, generally safer relationships they found themselves in as adults. Externalizing the pattern by naming it in real time, ideally to the partner it affects. Self-sabotage thrives in silence, partly because it disguises itself so effectively as legitimate reaction to the present moment. The instant it gets spoken aloud, even imperfectly, even without full understanding of where it's coming from, it loses a significant amount of its power because it stops being an invisible force directing behavior and becomes, instead, a known pattern that both people in the relationship can watch for together. A second practical tool involves distinguishing between an actual problem and a manufactured one, particularly during periods when a relationship feels unusually calm. This requires a specific, honest question. Is this concern something that would matter to a reasonably secure outside observer? Or is it something that only feels urgent because the relationship has started to feel safer than what I'm used to? This distinction isn't always obvious in the moment, which is exactly why it's worth building as a habit rather than expecting to get it right immediately every time. A third tool involves deliberately practicing tolerance for calm in small, manageable doses, rather than waiting for the discomfort to pass on its own. This might mean noticing a period of relationship stability and consciously choosing not to introduce a test or a manufactured conflict, sitting instead with the specific discomfort of simply enjoying something that feels, at least initially, unfamiliar and slightly untrustworthy. Each time this discomfort is tolerated without acting on it, it provides new evidence to a nervous system that previously had very little proof that calm can be trusted rather than immediately punished. A fourth tool, particularly relevant for patterns rooted in fear of engulfment rather than fear of abandonment, involves practicing small, low-stakes acts of vulnerability rather than either full withdrawal or complete emotional exposure. Someone whose instinct is to withhold entirely during a partner's vulnerable moments might start by offering a small, imperfect response rather than none at all, acknowledging discomfort honestly. I want to be here for you right now, and I'm noticing it's hard for me to stay present, rather than either forcing an emotional performance that doesn't feel authentic or retreating into silence that leaves a partner alone with their own vulnerability. A fifth tool involves recognizing that self-sabotage, once identified, usually can't be resolved through willpower alone and often benefits from outside support, whether therapy or simply consistent, honest conversation with a partner who understands what's actually happening underneath the behavior. This isn't a failure of self-sufficiency. It's an acknowledgement that patterns built over years, often starting in childhood, rarely dismantle themselves through insight alone, the same way understanding a habit intellectually rarely changes it without sustained, repeated practice doing something different in its place. A sixth tool involves tracking the pattern across time rather than judging it moment to moment, since self-sabotage is often easier to see in retrospect than in the middle of it happening. Keeping a simple, private record, even just a few lines after a conflict or a moment of withdrawal, noting what preceded it and how stable the relationship felt beforehand, can reveal a rhythm that's nearly invisible in any single instance. Many people who do this discover their own version of Adrian's 8-month mark, a specific point of stability or intimacy that reliably precedes the pattern, and simply knowing that rhythm exists makes it considerably easier to catch the next time it starts. A seventh tool, easy to underestimate, involves choosing a partner who can hear this explanation without either dismissing it or using it as a weapon later. Self-sabotage is difficult enough to interrupt without also managing a partner's defensiveness or impatience about it. A partner who can respond to "I think I'm doing the thing again" with curiosity rather than frustration becomes, in effect, a second set of eyes on a pattern that's genuinely hard to see from the inside alone. And that kind of collaborative awareness tends to shorten the distance between recognizing the pattern and actually changing it. It's worth saying clearly that recognizing this pattern in yourself doesn't mean every doubt you have about a relationship is automatically self-sabotage to be dismissed. Some relationships genuinely aren't right, and some concerns genuinely deserve attention and action. The distinction isn't about suppressing every instinct toward caution. It's about learning to tell the difference between caution that's responding to something real in the present relationship and caution that's actually an old alarm system, still responding faithfully to a threat that stopped being relevant years ago. Here's the insight worth carrying out of this. The part of you that sabotages good relationships was never trying to destroy your happiness. It was trying to protect you, using the only tools it had, in an environment that no longer exists. It learned, reasonably, given what it went through, that closeness was dangerous, or that stability was a trick right before a fall, and it has been running that same protective program ever since, loyally, even when the danger it's protecting against isn't actually in the room anymore. The work isn't to silence that part of you or treat it as an enemy. It's to gently let it know, through repeated evidence rather than a single conversation, that this time, in this relationship, it might actually be safe to stand down.